Well, this video is gonna make a lot of people upset. Howdy fellow no-lifers. 2 weeks ago I switched to BSPWM from i3 and it's been pretty nice ever since. In this video I'm going to tell you why and how exactly I switched. A little disclaimer before we actually get started. This is not one of those videos where I get to show my favorite window manager and you get to be like, "Wait, but i3 is so much better because you don't understand me, here's 10 reasons why." No. Honestly, just because I prefer one window manager over another one does not mean that I insult your choice. If you're happy with i3, that's really great. That's thumbs up and all that. So the reason why I made the switch was not because I got tired of i3 or because there's some functionality I was missing in i3. It's just because I like discovering new things and I decided to try a new window manager. If you think about it, tiling window manager are really obscure since a lot of Linux users actually just use a desktop environment. To be more precise, a DE that came with their Linux installation, for example, GNOME for Ubuntu or KDE for Kubuntu, etc. So tiling window manager users represent a really tiny fraction of Linux users. And if we go more in depth, the majority of tiling window manager users use i3, and then a really tiny fraction of those people use some other tiling window manager, for example, Awesome or DWM or BSPWM. So you might want to ask, why going full hipster? Why trying to look for the most obscure window manager out there? And I'll tell you, I have nothing else to do with my life. That's it. That's literally the answer. So let's get down to the point. Why do I think that BSPWM is better than i3? And the reason number one is modularity. So the way i3 works is it includes a window manager, a bar, and a keyboard shortcut daemon, which is really great. I think you just install i3 and then you can start working on your stuff right away without, tinkering with the panel and, thinking about all the other stuff. Whereas other window managers, for example, BSPWM, are just really window managers. If you want to bind keyboard shortcuts or if you want a panel, you need to install some other stuff. And some people might find it a little cumbersome. I myself thought that way before I actually tried BSPWM. But as a matter of fact, it makes your setup much more modular. For example, I don't use the default i3 bar because I don't like it. It's shit. Sorry. Instead, I use polybar. And to me, it's actually better if a window manager doesn't include bar because I'm going to install one anyway, so that's just kind of a waste of space. The majority of people that use BSPWM also use SXHKD as a keyboard daemon, and that actually makes it possible to exchange your window manager for another one in case you don't like BSPWM. I find it really cool, and it also conforms to the Unix philosophy, which is do one thing and do it good. And even though, of course, one shouldn't use Unix philosophy as a Bible, it's still a nice thing to consider. Number two, even though i3 includes a bar, a window manager, and a keyboard shortcut daemon, there's one thing that it doesn't include by default: gaps. I mean, seriously, it's 2019. What's the problem? And yes, I am aware of the fork by Airblader, which includes gaps and also some other useful features, but first, it's a fork, and second, it's not available on all platforms. For example, no love for OpenBSD users. Another advantage that BSPWM has over i3 is something I call that cool Fibonacci thingy, which is really hard to explain, so here's how i3 spawns Windows by default. And here's how BSPWM spawns Windows by default. Damn, boy! Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Actually, there's a script that implements similar behavior on i3, but what it does implement is custom window spawn rules. Case in point, there is a little script on BSPWM's GitHub, and what it does is if your window's height is more than its width, it's gonna split it horizontally, and if the width is more than the height, it's gonna split it vertically. And a friend of mine who has an ultra-wide monitor actually modified this script so that the window is only split vertically if width is 1.5 times more than the height. Another cool thing that BSPWM lets you do is subscribe to certain events, for example, window title change or workspace change. and then execute a script or a shell command. For example, the same friend of mine implemented a script which disables screen locking when an active window is full screen. And then I rewrote it a little bit so that the screen locking is disabled if an active window is full screen or has Netflix or YouTube in title. Another cool thing that this feature lets you do is use shortcuts without modifier key if your current workspace is empty. For example, you can use V to execute Vim or Q to execute Q browser instead of mod Q and mod V. How cool is that? And then there are other cool tricks, for example, mod C to cycle through windows in your current workspace, or mod R to rotate current desktop's tree. That feature just blew my mind when I first saw it, seriously. Also, you can swap windows. For example, you can swap the current window and the biggest window in a current node. This is so useful. And there's much more. I don't think I'll ever discover all the features that BSPWM has. And even with all those features, it's still more lightweight than i3. Now granted, the difference is just like 20 megabytes, but still, considering the fact that BSPWM has much more features than i3, that's something to think about. So what is your tiling window manager of choice? Let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.